Before I get started, I just wanted, has everybody seen the scooters out all around the streets? Has anybody used one? They're awesome. So if you get the chance, yesterday I got a scooter gang of about 6 guys, and we intentionally found dinner about 2 miles away just to get the ride in, and it was great. So it shows you kind of what a geek I am, but it was a lot of fun. So let's jump in. Oh, I think we're even missing a slide. Uh-oh, that's all right. So a little background on myself. I've been with Paychex about 17 years, and I met my wife there, which was great. And one of the things that's been great about working with her is that we have a car ride about once a week, and we talk about DevOps. She's an infrastructure solution lead, so I've learned more about continuous delivery, infrastructure, and it's a great conversation. It actually makes me an advocate for DevOps. And what really helps is, her message to me always is, make sure we're engaged, the operations folks, early on in the process. I bleed Paychex blue and really love it and love the people. And one of the great things about Paychex is, as part of our transformation, is that our culture is such that we were always a change type culture, and that's really helped. So a little bit story about our success. We started our transformation, as Summer mentioned, in 2014. And over the past 5 years, we've matured, and we're still getting there. But when Tim and I pulled this deck together, one of the interesting things that we saw was in 2013 how much we've changed from waterfall to agile and some of the portfolio metrics that we report on. And some of this hasn't changed today. So every 2 months, we go in front of the executive team and kind of give an update on how we're doing from a project perspective, cost perspective, and share all that information. So as you can see, in 2013, just the number of projects in flight, we were at 50 projects. And in 2019, we're and that's at one point in time, 2019, we're running about 80.
Your mic's in and out.
Switch it.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Is this on? Okay. I got to figure out the hand holding here. Yeah, so we were always running about 50 concurrent projects. We're now up to 80. Now, some of that's due to growth, but a lot of it is the testament that we're chunking up work into smaller chunks. Second thing, overall cost. As you can see, we have reduced our cost of our projects from $1.3 million down to, actually the numbers now are about $550,000 per project. Again, a testament to how we're breaking things down into smaller chunks. Third thing, cost variance. This is a big one for us. So we roll up our cost variance at a portfolio level, and every 2 months we report how we're doing. We were always about 5% over budget for our projects, and now going to Agile, we're 4.5% under budget. So great story there. Duration overrun. This one's unbelievable. We ran about 5 months overrun on all our projects, and now we're talking a week or 2 in terms of overrun. Incredible. And then finally, from a quality perspective, we were 2013 holistically 306 escape defects, basically, or post-imp issues. To date in calendar 19, we're at 36. So just a holistic story on our success in Agile, and as I mentioned, we'll continue to push forward. So I want to go into our dashboards and our health metrics. And probably the biggest thing that we've worked on is we believe at Paychex that healthy teams are most productive. And that is a culture thing that we had to really push. From my perspective, I have my portfolio managers, program managers, scrum masters. And what we do is we treat team health just as important as any other project metric. So I constantly remind my team, it's not just about delivering on time, hitting your cost, it's also about making your team healthy. So to do that, we built some dashboards to help them monitor the health and make changes as they see them. And it was great to see the presentation before because we're doing a lot of the same things. We're combining our AgilityHealth radar information with our HPPPM data and JIRA to give a holistic view of everything that's going on within a team. And then the team can react to those. And what's great about these dashboards is we can actually roll them up at a team level, a program level, a portfolio, and enterprise. And what my org does is we actually look at that enterprise data and start to see trends and figure out, hey, how are we going to make some changes to the things that we're seeing? And I'll show you what those are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the dashboard. The way we structured this is one chunk, but as I go through, imagine seeing all 3 chunks across the board all stitched together. And as you can see, we just list out every team. In this case, it's a small snapshot. And we're just, no surprise here, we're still pulling the AgilityHealth data together. What we do at Paychex, we require our teams to have an assessment every 6 months. So we just bring forward that visibility to know, hey, am I on track for the next assessment? And if they start falling out of that, we just kind of categorize those as yellow or red, depending on how many months they're out of compliance. So pretty straightforward stuff here. Second thing we do, we bring forward some additional team metrics in terms of team maturity and also in terms of team score. And then finally, we just bring forward the team triangle score, how the leadership is doing. So it's a good, there's much more obviously in the health radar, but this is just a good litmus test of saying how do we feel about ourselves. Second group is our PPM data. And with the PPM data, I consider this more just the facts about the team. So we're just looking at simple things of staffing profiles and ratios of product owners, scrum masters, and solution leads to the teams themselves. First thing we did is we took a look at team stability, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one because this was one that I would say Summer and Sally taught us a lot about of how important team stability is. But when we looked at the data, we realized it's really, really important. So basically what we do here is it's a simple metric of if I have a 10-person team, and in the last 6 months, if I've had 2 people turnover, I'm 80% stable. And simple math that we'll continue to monitor, but there's stories behind all of these. Second thing we do is we monitor ratios. So at Paychex, our Scrum Masters cover 2 teams, our product owners cover 2 teams, and our solution leads cover 1 team. And there are occasions, as you can see on this radar right here, that we have some Scrum Masters covering 3 teams. And that's just, we don't have enough Scrum Masters to meet that ratio. We make decisions around that. But it's data that we can use that if the team was struggling, we can make some pivots on maybe potentially moving that Scrum Master out because they're struggling. It just generates the dialogue of what's the story behind the team. The final thing we measure is overtime percentage. And this is probably the one that we're really not actively using. The numbers aren't really popping. We're seeing that any team puts between 1% and 5% of overtime a month. It's not that much, but we brought this data forward. And as you'll see, we continuously evolve this dashboard just because we continually learn. So here's my favorite part. This is the JIRA data, and this is really how the team is performing. So we look at defect count, and this one's pretty rudimentary right now, but what it's showing is just over the last 6 months, how many defects did a team have? And when we talk about defects here, we're not talking escape defects into production. We're talking about in our pre-prod environments. So a team is in their development environment, they do development, they're ready to move to the next integrated environment. When they move to that integrated environment, that's when we're measuring. So we expect when they move, there's 100% no defects, and this is the list that shows that. And what we've seen is a wide range of teams from 0 defects over the last 6 months to probably 35 or 40. And again, there's stories behind all of those. Second one is the story commit to complete. And I would say this is probably the one that we watch the most. So the measurement behind this is we basically say a team starts a sprint. They have 5 stories that equate to 20 points. We measure, did they deliver those exact 5 stories? And we see some variation here. We see a lot of story swapping where they're delivering 4 out of 5 of those stories and they're pulling a different one in. When we rolled this out, got a lot of feedback on this one because teams were saying, well, we still delivered our 20 points. Don't we get credit for that? So to acquiesce them, we also introduced the points commit to complete. They felt really good about that. But really, what we see in our teams is that there's probably almost 100% compliance on the points commit to complete. But from a story commit to complete, that's where we're really seeing the opportunity to go back and figure out what's the churn, what's the waste, and that's how we're driving those dialogues. So standards and messaging. One of the things that we learned before we rolled out these dashboards is we had to get our 120 teams all doing the same things, standardizing our tools, the data, and we have teams that are internal Paychex teams. We have teams in India. We have third-party teams that help us out. So we had to go back and scrub everything. So a couple things we did. One, we started putting everybody on 2-week sprints. We were 95% there, but there were some hangers-oners that were 3-week sprints, and we just said, you're done with that. 2-week sprints starting this date. Also with that, we standardized our sprint calendar. So in Paychex, all 120 teams are on the same sprint cadence, which has been, we've had tremendous feedback on this in terms of teams starting to have dialogues, especially when we get into those cross-program and portfolio efforts where they really need to plan sprint by sprint. So it's great to have teams talk about, I need something in sprint 7, I need something in sprint 8, and building those plans. Second thing we did is just consistent JIRA usage. So we talked as a team about how we want to point things. Certainly we point stories, but we had open dialogue on, do we want to point spikes? Do we want to point defects that we're pulling in? So we wanted to just make sure everybody was doing it apples to apples, so we scrubbed all that. Just also had some training in general on sprint start and close, making sure that everybody knew when all their ducks in a row before they hit sprint start in the tool and knew how to close those appropriately so we'd get those metrics. And the final thing we did is we scrubbed our enterprise definition of done and definition of ready. Made sure that everybody was well versed in that, and when we rolled this out, we retrained everybody on the expectations there. So the lessons learned on this. I literally was about 9 months ago rolling this out with about 120 leaders from all our teams, with the director of development with us, and we said, hey, we built some dashboards for you guys. Here they are, and go use them. And we literally almost got walked out of the place. Got absolutely killed. It was the feedback was, why are you doing this to us? It feels very big brotherish. You're really inspecting our work, and we had to take a step back and really take that feedback and work with them on changing the messaging, which was really, this is a tool for the teams and the programs and the portfolios to inspect and to get better, and we didn't do a very good job of that. So what we've done now going forward is our rollouts are more at a local level. So we'll take these types of things, and as we roll out things on the dashboard, we have our portfolio managers or program managers pull in the leaders of those teams and say, here's the why we're doing it versus here is what we're doing. And that, since we've rolled out changes on the dashboard, has made the difference between what I experienced 9 months ago and how it's perceived today. So the other thing we did is we didn't just roll out dashboards, but we put in some cadence and some rhythm to ensure that everybody was actually going to use them. We knew that if we just roll them out, you'd probably get 10, 20% adoption, but we put in some practices and expectations that roll all the way up, and this is pretty cool. So at a team level, we asked the teams that after each sprint, you should probably take a look at your dashboard. Granted, most of the data is not going to change. Your AgilityHealth scores aren't going to change. Your PPM data in terms of employee is not going to change. And you'll probably see some variation in JIRA, but just want that constant view of, hey, am I looking at things and am I asking the question, hey, what's red on the dashboard? What do we have to talk about? At a program level, we ask our program managers once a month, you need to look at this and look at your program metrics and make sure there's dialogues that need to happen on how are you improving your program. Is there a trend you're seeing in your particular program or portfolio that you need to address? So we've instituted that. But I think what's powerful in Paychex is that from an executive support perspective, my team meets with the CIO every quarter to go through AgilityHealth, and we prepare a whole presentation on what we're doing. So between Tim and I and my team, we're looking at those enterprise trends and saying, we're seeing this, and here's actually what we're doing with the data and making changes. We also include things of, here's what we're seeing at a particular program, here's the story, and here's what we're doing. And then finally, we'll even bring in some team information to say, here's where we're having some high-performing teams and what we're seeing, and here's where we have some teams that are struggling and what we're doing about that. So it's a nice package, and I think that it just supports that culture of accountability for us, that back to what I said before, that we believe team health is important. It's important to our executive leader, and he's forced that to be part of our culture, and that accountability has worked its way all the way through. So I'm going to take you through a couple of the pieces of data that we did see that are very interesting in what we did. One of the things that we saw from an AgilityHealth perspective is that strong product owners equates to better commit to complete. And product owners that are struggling a little bit, commit to complete's not so great. Not rocket science, but it's now we have the data to have that dialogue. So some of the things that we did when we saw this data, we made sure that our definition of ready was intact and recommunicated that out. Second one is we packaged up some product owner material. We had a lot of new product owners coming in and said we got to train them, make sure they know how to manage their backlogs. And then finally, we added to the dashboard a metric on backlog readiness. So this was really a standard that we put in place, and our standard is that for each team, outside of the sprint they're working on, they should have one full sprint of work ready to go that meets our definition of ready. Now that might be a little light, we're gonna watch that, but we wanted to start somewhere. And then we just put a green, yellow, red kind of measurement on that to say, how's your backlog looking? So we rolled this out in the June, July-ish, and they're just starting to see the data come through in terms of how compliant our teams and are they getting the message. Second thing that we saw, a couple trends regarding stability. So when I went back to that PPM slide that showed that we had, we focus on team stability, here's where we're seeing the data as well. So one, we're looking at no surprises here, but team maturity and stability are lockstep. The more stable the team, the more mature they become. And then team stability with escape defects. The more stable a team is, the better quality code they produce. And then finally, we rolled this up into what are we seeing since we rolled out the dashboard and really instituted the rhythm within Paychex. So as you can see, since 2019, since January, our story commit to complete has gone up. Our average team velocity has gone up, and our average escape defects per team has gone down. Now, not all of this is due to just having dashboards, but it has provided the visibility so teams know that, hey, we have to look at these things. And they're all looking at them and watching. And finally, I'll just wrap up with what our keys to success were. One, fortunate for us, that the culture needs to support that team health is just as important as everything else teams do in terms of project execution. So that was critical to us. You have to standardize kind of your key principles and your tool use. You have to put some type of cadence and rhythm in reviewing this data or it won't get used. The big one, make sure your rollout is, showing the value and not just telling people here's what you're going to do. And fortunately for us, we have the support of our executive team in terms of full sponsorship of team health, and that has been critical for us. And then finally, we'll continue to be agile, make changes. The dashboard I showed you was not the same dashboard it was 3-4 months ago, and we'll continue to tweak as we go. Thank you. That's our story.